Did our founding fathers ever imagine that the federal government could balloon in size and scope as it has in recent years?
As one of the founders said, a government big enough to give you everything you want can take everything you have. And what we see is now is a growing, expanding government that has taken away our freedoms.
We've seen a trend for years of a growing state, in fact, government at all levels. But a lot of us never thought it could go this fast, this far. It's shocking. And even some liberals are waking up and saying, whoa, this is not what we had in mind.
At the inception of America, the founding fathers recognized the importance of having limited government, hence the reason for having a separation of powers. But today we've seen many in the government attempt to grab more power.
We have checks and balances for a reason. We saw what happens to nations that just have kings who can abuse their power. That's why America's founders went to so much trouble to divide the powers. And their idea was to put most of the power in the hands of the group closest to the people, which was the legislature, and in particular, the House of Representatives.
Presidents, unfortunately, have a history of taking a license with the executive authority and doing all kinds of damage to the United States of America.
The federal government's job is described in our United States Constitution, and the only power given to the federal government is listed in the Constitution. There are 17 specific enumerated powers. That's the jurisdiction, that's the authority of the federal government. Well, they've gone way outside of that. Now we've got all these things like a Department of Agriculture and a Department of Education. Look at what's happening right now across our nation as we have this critical race theory being forced on our children all across the country, and you have a federal Department of Education encouraging this. You have an administration that is actually saying they want boys to be in girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, showers. This is crazy policy, and it's coming from a top-down approach from the federal government.
Many note the extreme government overreach used during the COVID pandemic.
Now, after every crisis, there is this trend, surrender more of your rights and freedoms to the government. They'll take care of everything. The problem is we're fundamentally transforming our form of government from the people ruling themselves back ultimately to a king.
You've got the CDC and the NIH actually micromanaging the health care of Americans, mandating vaccines, mandating all kinds of things they do not have the federal authority to do, even doing an eviction moratorium. Now they're into the landlord and tenant contract business. There is no constitutional authority for any of that.
It is clear that the government is careening down a dangerous path, resulting in Americans losing more and more freedoms. And something has to be done. Enter Mark Meckler, founder of Convention of States.
Calling a convention of states is a way to take power back from the federal government and return it to the states and to the people. And so that's really the entire purpose, is to restore self-governance to America. Article 5 of the Constitution provides the methods whereby we amend the Constitution. The first clause says that whenever 2/3 of both houses of Congress propose an amendment, that goes out to the states for ratification. That's how we've always done it, 27 amendments. The second part gives the states the power to do that, and when 2/3 of the states propose to get together in convention, then they can propose amendments to the Constitution, and those go out for the same method of ratification by 3/4 of the states.
It's a three-step process. The first step is that 34 states call for the convention. The second step is that at the convention, at least 26 states propose, they say yes to proposing an amendment. Let's say they propose term limits on federal congressmen. And so they take this amendment and then they send it to all 50 states. And if 38 of those 50 states say yes, that amendment now goes into the Constitution. That's how we got 27 amendments to the Constitution.
This provision in Article 5 of the Constitution, giving the states the power to propose amendments, was a genius last-minute addition in the final days of the Constitutional Convention.
So you have constitutional authority, they're way outside of it. How do you get them back inside the box? What George Mason, framer of the Constitution, one of the 55 to give it to us, what he said on September 15th at the very end of the convention is he said, we've got a problem here. We've created a federal government, we've given it certain authority, but what happens when it gets outside that authority? Who puts them back in the box? And the way the Constitution was designed as of that day on September 15th, the only constitutional amendments had to start in Congress, which means the very people that stole authority, that got outside of the boundaries of what they had permission to do, are the only ones that can put themselves back in the box. George Mason said that's a bad idea. We've got to have a way to come from outside and push them back into the proper box, and it needs to be the people that actually formed the federal government. Who did that? The states. An Article 5 convention is very simply the states saying to the federal government, we need to make some corrections. You've gotten outside of your authority, and we're going to push you back into the box that we designed you to be in. An Article 5 convention is simply designed to propose amendments to the Constitution in order to keep the federal government in check.
Potential amendments could include limiting the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, imposing fiscal restraints, and placing term limits on federal officials.
So we launched the Convention of States project in 2013 and knew it was going to be a long, slow march, but we had no idea how quickly it was going to explode. Today, over 5.2 million people are engaged all across the country. We have folks who are volunteers in every single state legislative district in the nation. I literally can't travel anywhere without meeting people who are part of the Convention of States project today.
The Convention of States is a grassroots movement, and you can play a big part in helping restore freedom in America.
Every single citizen in America can do something about this. ConventionofStates.com is the place to sign up. Every single citizen can be the catalyst in their community, in their neighborhood, in their state maybe, to help bring this about. I think the beauty of our system is that no one has to be silenced and prevented from participating in their process. Our system actually empowers them to influence the process, and millions of people are doing that all over the country.
When I look at the list of people who support it, frankly, for me, it's humbling, and there are a lot of names that people would recognize. So supporting the Convention of States project, you have Ben Shapiro, Sean Hannity, Glenn Beck, Pete Hegseth from Fox and Friends, political figures people might know. Governor Ron DeSantis here in Florida was an early supporter. Really appreciate Governor Abbott in Texas. Notable scholars like Robbie George at Princeton, Randy Barnett at Georgetown Law. The list is so long, it's hard for me to remember all the people who support Convention of States now.
As Christians, it is important to get involved in saving the biblical foundations our nation was built on.
I think as Christians, we have a particular responsibility that we understand that is a generational responsibility. Americans tend to live for the moment. We're a consumer society, everything's right now. But as Christians, we're supposed to look out for our fellow man and for future generations, for our posterity. And it's been true from times of the Old Testament all the way through the New Testament, that we look forward and we set the groundwork for future generations. This is a chance for us to do something good, not just for our kids and our grandkids, but for posterity. This is the country alone on earth where we've been given the place where we can live out the free will that God gave us if we protect it. And I worry that we're not going to have that for our kids and our grandkids if we don't do something as Christians right now.
I've said for years, we will not save this constitutional republic without a Convention of States. It is the tool in our Constitution to restore these jurisdictions and the proper authority of the federal government. It's got to be done if we want to save our country.
The most important piece to saving our country is the same piece that has always existed, which is it's the American people. In the American Revolution, it's not the great leaders who saved the country, really, it's just average people. That's always been true throughout all of American history. So what people need to do today is to be engaged.
Only a Convention of States will get us back to that place where the states can have their own personalities and the federal government will do what only the federal government can do. National defense, patents and copyrights, post offices and post roads. There's 17 enumerated powers in the Constitution. That's what the federal government should do, and leave everything else to the states.